3 sounds of the bell. Dear Thai, dear Sangha, dear brothers, we're in the Solidity Hamlet for our day of mindfulness, and it is the 19th of April 2020, and I am thinking that what I will share today is going to be a little bit for us, but also for people outside, people that are maybe in different situations, although we're all practicing somehow together to stay home. People's home environments are very different, and so I'll be sharing a bit for families, for people staying outside. And the first thing I want to share is how to take refuge in the breath. Just to, it's the most simple act we can do, is just to come home to the breathing. But in times when we really need that, we remember that, it's really there for us as a refuge, as a friend, as a way to be able to be with what is. So, breathing in, we become aware of our body, our breathing. Breathing out, we relax. And this simple act of just coming back to the breath and the body can help restore our peace and help us to calm our body and our mind. So let us just enjoy a sound of the bell just with that simple practice, coming back to the breath, coming back to the body, calming the breath, calming the body, and releasing tension. breathing in, we can become aware of our whole body. And breathing out, we smile with gratitude and compassion for our whole body. If there is anxiety in the body, with the in-breath, we recognize and smile and calm. And with the out-breath also, we can allow the anxiety to be released. We are there with our anxiety. It is allowed to be, and the anxiety has a place also to dissipate. I myself, the other night, woke up at 3 a.m. with anxiety. I had an experience of waking up and feeling quite heavy in my heart, and I was not really able to explain where it came from. I think later on I had lots of ideas of where that came from. I know that I hold some worries about the situations, about my family, about myself, my own health, about the world. Even I had anxiety before COVID. It's not like we have the situation of many things happening in the world that can give us anxiety. Ecology, destruction, and some of the ways in which the politics are going. We get concerned. We're heading the temptation for leaders to take us in a totalitarian direction, and things like this. These are concerns that sometimes can wake us up at night. And in that state, as I say, I wasn't actually sure what had come about. I wasn't even sure what to make of it. But I did know that I needed to sit up and breathe. And this is what I took refuge in. And I also listened to a talk of our teacher, who just happened to be talking about breathing and calming the body and restoring our peace with the breath. So I thought, well, that's great. Thank you, Tai. And I was able to just after, it took me about half an hour to an hour to really take care of this anxiety which had surfaced, and then to be able to go back and have a peaceful rest, sleep. And I think that morning I still made it for sitting meditation and enjoyed my sitting. So the practice can be exactly what we need in difficult times. Because as well as taking care of our physical health, there's also a lot to do to take care of our mental health. If we have situation where there is a viral pandemic, but we could also, if we're not careful, have an epidemic of mental illness in the world. We really need these new situations can cause a lot of anxiety, and the instructions always have been stay home, right? And for many people, that's okay. They have a nice home to stay at, and we are lucky also we have a nice place to be together in this time of staying home. And then also, if the family is a happy family, then it's okay, Or if people are on their own and they enjoy their own company and they have plenty of things that they can do, they may be quite happy to have this time. But that is not always the case. Yeah. So for those of us, for those in families where there's maybe tensions, the tensions can rise. Yeah. So anxiety is one thing I was going to talk about, which I sort of have in terms of, taking care of it. And just for one thing I find useful in times of anxiety or difficult things is sense of humor. And I want to inject a bit of humor into this talk. And I came across this tweet by John Cleese. So I just want to share it with you, just for fun. John Cleese, from Monty Python, and I believe Americans quite like Monty Python. Interestingly, yeah. Okay, well the quote is something where I've got it, something, he said, on his tweet, I think it was in March this year, he said, "I'm not advocating uncontrolled panic." Because if you panic for more than a couple of hours, you will exhaust yourself. And you then may not have enough energy to panic later, when you really feel you have to. So try about 20 minutes panicking at 11 a.m. coming up, and then another spell at 6 p.m. So this is to inject some Monty Python style humor into the talk, and just to say, actually, there's a spot of truth as well. Is that a bit like with my anxiety that woke me up in the morning? What I noticed was probably I'd been somewhat suppressing, just not wanting to pay attention to things that were building up over some time in me. And the practice should allow us to take care of things, not just in the crisis, in the panic, in the emergency, but a little bit all the time, to be able to be at home. To stay at home in the kind of spiritual sense means to literally be in the body and be aware of what is taking place in our body and in our mind, so that we can actually catch these moments when we are having an anxious thought and take care of it in that moment, instead of feeding the anxiety with the thinking and going further into it. We take refuge in the breath, and we be there for the sensation of anxiety and calm it down. And of course, in doing that, we are not saying that there is not something to do. There is not a problem to be understood. There is not things that are of concern, but it is a question of putting ourselves in the best position to meet the situation. And for that, we want to have a calm and stable body and mind. So, knowing that, we use the practice to calm, but not to avoid. Yeah. So, in connection with calming physiologically, we should also have times where we can share about our concerns, but not in a way, again, to just sort of get each other worked up and water this more anxiety, but to be able to share, this is what I'm looking at, this is what I'm holding at the moment, and somehow have a place to share that together. So, in other words, there can be a time for not panic, but for sharing what is going on for us, and getting some sense of support from each other in doing so. So that is a little bit why we are reaching out to sanghas across the world. I had a lovely connection with a sangha that I've not met before in Nebraska. So I went all the way to Nebraska from the conference room here in Solidity with Brother No Com, and in this way we were part of the sangha meeting, and we had a time for sharing what is happening for us. So having a time to share, and not just in such a way that we kind of we absorb a lot of information, but that is not necessarily going to help us handle the situation. We like to feel like, okay, now I really understand what's going on, but the situation seems to be always changing, and then there's another new normal. So we need something to take refuge in that is stable for us. They say these days, I wonder if I make it over to the board, but will there be a pen that works? Okay, so there is an acronym now. Vuca. Has anybody heard of it? They say we're in a Vuca world. If you just put an L and an N there, you have Vulcan, but I don't think that's what they mean. No. But it's a Vuca world is not such a pleasant one. The sound isn't not so pleasant either, is it? So, but it stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Volatile means things are changing rapidly, and it just seems the slightest thing can make things go this way, that way, very quickly. What is the opposite of volatile? What is, if you like, what we would prefer would be what we have here, right? In Solidity Hamlet. We want solidity. We want something steady, something we can rely on to stay stable. So we want solidity, stability. If things are uncertain, it means, we just can't seem to predict what is going to happen. We can't rely on things going this way. There is a lot of uncertainty. So again, we want something that is we can trust. Something trustable, something reliable. That would be a kind of antidote, right, to uncertainty. Does anybody want to offer seeing anything else with uncertain? Complex. Things are complex in the sense, nothing seems to be quite as it seems on the surface, and there is, even if you do one thing to try and help the situation, but then on the other hand it causes another problem. Things get complex. So yes, we stay at home, but then that causes other problems. We know that part of the problem with the world has been too much consumerism and causing pollution, but if we stop, then the economy goes down and then people suffer because of that. So it seems like whichever way you go, it's complex. Yeah. So we're looking for a clear direction. Maybe one word opposing complex. The complex is, you want the simplicity. You want a clear direction. And with ambiguous, you're not sure what is what again. And so clarity would be useful to bring to an ambiguous world. So this clear direction, this stability, in what can we trust? Where do we get this clarity in a world where things are volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous? And this is where we can say, as on the spiritual path, we see the answer quite clearly, but I feel like to not be, dualistic about what is spiritual and what is real world. I feel that this is what is needed in the so-called real world, because the real world and the spiritual life need to come, we need each other. So what is it we trust? What is it that can bring us stability? What is it that can bring us clarity? And the practice, we can call it mindfulness. the way of mindfulness. The way of mindfulness. In Buddhism, this way of mindfulness, we talk, and the practice we call the Dharma. It means the teachings that allow us to cultivate mindfulness, concentration, and clarity. And it's often called the way of understanding and love. So what I'm coming to is seeing for myself that the way of understanding and love is to cultivate these qualities. And in recent classes here in Deer Park, we've really looked into what is love, Thai's teachings on love. First of all, what is mindfulness of the breath got to do with love? So in the exercise we did at the beginning, to be there for a difficult emotion is an act of love. To choose to come back to yourself and not further distract yourself or further run away from the truth of what is going on for you is an act of courage and an act of love. To be able to make that choice, first of all, you kind of have to know that option is on the table, like it's available to you. And how are you going to know that and have trust in that being there for you if you have not practiced before? Maybe in times when it was an easier time. So we want to have the practice available to us, not just as a notion, but we kind of want to know how we experience that, so that we can have faith in the practice, we can have trust in the practice. So if we make the experience of being able to take care of a difficult emotion like anxiety with mindful breathing, we have faith in that, and we will go to that when we need it. Mindfulness of the breath is to bring us into contact with what is going on for us in the present moment. It is to allow us to be there. And to love is to be there. If you want to offer love to somebody, you have to offer your presence. You have to say, I'm here for you, right? So, being able to have this capacity to come back to yourself and be there for yourself. And in that way we can then extend that. When we've taken care of ourselves, we have that then to offer to somebody else. While I have some room on the board, I might as well throw in the 6 elements of true love. The 6 ingredients of love being classically, the first 4 are this befriending, befriending what is there with loving kindness. So this is in Sanskrit called Maitri. So learning to become friends, offering friendship to ourselves, to other people, offering loving kindness, something very much needed in the world, this offering of kindness. The second is compassion. Karuna. And the third is joy. Mudita. Compassion. When we see somebody suffering, or when we suffer, we know how to be there for that person with our stability, with our own practice of mindful breathing. We can offer stability to that person. We can be there for them in their moment of suffering. We can listen in order to understand. And offering joy is an act of love also. Even in the difficult moment, things are difficult, but we also need the joy for balance. You know, if we're all on the side of, so that is why I say sense of humor can be good, but joy, of course, is a very deep quality. The kind of joy we cultivate in the practice, it has this aspect, it belongs to love, it belongs to loving kindness. That is why we can say, waking up in the morning I smile, and I smile with looking with love. So it's the smile of love, the smile of compassion for all living beings. So the kind of joy that goes along with compassion, it's not just we're not just talking about a kind of frivolous, excited joy. And the kind of smile, a Buddha smile, if you like, that's in touch with Buddha nature, the nature of things, deep reverence and love. The kind of joy that goes along with peace. That is the kind of joy we cultivate. And when we have that kind of joy, we also have it then to offer. And this can be something, very, very precious, to be able to offer joy. I may come back to that, to those elements. I've given you 3 already. But on the subject of smiling, I offer a bit more humour, and in the form of a poem. So we'll have a sound of the bell first. So this poem is attributed to somebody called Spike Milligan, who's an English guy. He actually passed away in 2002, I think. And this poem is about smiling being infectious. So it's a bit of a risky joke for this time, but somewhat relevant. And I offer it, I hope it can be received in a good way. Smiling is infectious. You catch it like the flu. When someone smiled at me today, I started smiling too. I walked around the corner and someone saw me grin. When he smiled, I realized I'd passed it on to him. I thought about the smile and realized its worth. A single smile like mine could travel round the earth. So if you feel a smile begin, don't leave it undetected. Start an epidemic and get the world infected. So, I think, it's a fun poem, and there's a lot of truth in it that we can, there's this expression, pay it forward, with kindness, acts of random kindness. We need more loving kindness. We need to spread it out, and smiles also. Smile does not mean that we do not take situations seriously. We know things are going on, but we find we need each other's smile. And it's just as an interesting sort of footnote, Spike Milligan he actually passed away in the town my mother lives in England, but on his grave tombstone, it has it engraved. He wanted it engraved. I told you I was ill. So, so he had a kind of sense of humor about his own death as well. Yeah. Anyway. So smiling can be important. We connecting with each other in this time where people are asked to stay at home. As is mentioned, there can be a lot of anxiety and even people quite vulnerable. Not to mention people in different areas where there is not so much support from financially, so there are financial worries, and there are even people, who cannot afford to stay at home in any way. They may be relying on an income, and they face real hardship. So we're aware of those people in these times. And it's always the poor that get the most hit in these times and are the most vulnerable, even to starvation, even to other kinds of sickness. And then, even if you have the means to be able to, and you have the support financially to be able to stay at home and do what's asked of you, and you can get food, you still may be vulnerable to mental illness, to anxiety, etc. So this is partly, why we want to reach out as much as possible and find ways to support people who are in these vulnerable places. And I'm glad to say in my country, in the UK, there are definitely initiatives going in that direction. How to reach out to these people safely, not to spread, but these are initiatives, and charities are doing this kind of thing. And I was told things like the NHS made an app available where you can link yourself up to something in your local area that you can do. and there was hundreds of thousands that volunteered and got the app and became available for this kind of voluntary help. Yeah, and I think because this is a long-term situation, at the moment anyway, at first we thought, oh, maybe a month or two, but we really don't know how long we have to go with this kind of concern and the social distancing practices, etc. So we need to find ways to reach out safely to people. And online is one way, and that's of course very safe. Doesn't travel, the virus doesn't travel through the internet yet. So, but a smile can. But also in other ways, and of course we have our medical profession very much on the front line. Yeah. So for the majority of us, our contribution is staying away and staying home, and we know that our bodhicitta, our desire to serve, it's kind of made that, we've had to sort of rethink that because we want to be in contact with people. Yeah. So also what can be a good gift to people is offering certain ways that you can support yourself in the family situation where there is stress. There is a quote from Jane Austen I want to make. I'm making lots of quotes today. From her book Emma. Nobody who has not been in the interior of a family can say what the difficulties of any individual in that family may be. We kind of know that for our own experience. In our own families, they can be happy families, but there's always going to be complexity in the family. We can really, we make that experience, and when we're in our family, the dynamics are such that even in, as I say, a family where there is love and happiness, but there is also complexity, there is also dynamics which can cause friction. And we can, especially in a situation where there's a lot of pressure, and like now, people having to stay together, and there's maybe not the usual outlets, the usual ways to give space to each other, then there comes this situation where maybe people, even in families, even where there is an intention to be kind to each other, get irritated and say things are said, and people get hurt, and it can become quite difficult. So what to do when tensions rise and irritations come up, and things that we can do that could help in those situations. So thankfully our teacher already came up with a few ideas, so I'm sharing some of those in this talk. So the first thing, actually just yesterday evening we had the sutra on the 5 ways of putting an end to anger, right? And that's all about right attention. It's all about choosing not to focus on the part that got you upset, and specifically focusing on the kindness of that person. So what are the qualities that you really appreciate about the person, and particularly things like their kindness? Even somebody has said something harsh to you, before you get angry and start reacting, just remind yourself, this person is not always like this. He also has good qualities, and he also has kindness, So these harsh words now, I accept they maybe come from some suffering in that person. If you find yourself reacting, or that the situation is getting more volatile, So these words, volatile and uncertain, complex and ambiguous, also apply in a family, not just in the world. If you find something getting volatile in the family, then where do you go? Yeah, you're in the house already. What can you do? So, as I'm saying, the first thing you can do is recognize, oh, this is happening, and try to bring another thought to mind to help you not escalate in your mind the anger. You can also try going to another room, going for a walk. We're still allowed to go for walks, and calming yourself also, and giving space to the person. Not, you can politely excuse yourself and just say, oh, I'm just going to take a bit of space right now. Let's come back and talk later. Thai advocates a breathing room, a room you can go to where you will not be disturbed there, and you can just practice mindful breathing. You can go there to calm down and meditate. And that should be available to everybody in the family, including the children. And even the children should not be followed into that room. If they choose to go, it's because that room is dedicated, or that space, it may be a corner in a room, is a sacred space that everybody respects. Yeah. And if in your family there's not such a space, or not such an agreement, let's say, then you maybe in your room, you have a corner, you make it your space and your special place, and maybe it's a place outside, but hopefully also there could be a place inside the house, inside the home. And you go to that place and take refuge to calm your body and mind with the breathing. So having a space, a place where you can do that, where you can go to. So when tensions rise, that is what I'm going to do. Not to avoid or ignore the person or block them out, but to make sure that the situation doesn't escalate in terms of the emotion, etc. Until you calm yourself down. And then you can then restore with a bit of space, you can maybe go to that person with your smile and with your genuine intention to restore the peace between you, to restore the feeling of loving kindness. Yeah. So this is very much the ideal, because we know that things cannot always work like that. But just to have that intention and make that experience, it is possible, and we've hopefully made that experience in our own families here, to know that that's absolutely possible. We don't always manage it. We have mistakes where it doesn't work out. And what other things are available to us? So again, if the family can agree on it, you could have a bell in the household. So like we have in our practice centers, we have bells. And in meetings, if we see the tension rising between the brothers and or the sisters, we would have a bell to give ourselves a pause, so we can stop, let the tension come down, and be able to just reconnect with our peace, reconnect with our smile, and then re-engage. So even just a little pause, maybe 3 breaths with one sound of the bell. And if 3 sounds are needed, let there be 3 sounds. Because we need, that is the most important thing to do, to make sure that we've given ourselves enough of a pause to be able to come back and restore ourselves. And then we can come back together and maybe decide to drop the subject or engage in that subject that was causing some friction in a way which is more harmonious, more kind in our words to each other. And the tension can go. So this is something, the bell would have a sacred place in the house. The bell could also be invited by any member of the household, including a child, but it would be respected that it was a bell that was, when the bell is invited, everybody stops and comes back to their breath, whatever is going on. So it's not just invited just any time. It doesn't always just have to be invited in times of attention, but it's really the person choosing to invite the bell is offering the family this moment of pausing, recollecting, coming back to themselves, and then seeing each other with new eyes. Yeah. So it can be a very beautiful, refreshing moment for the family to see each other again and smile to each other. And that can sometimes be all that's needed, just to restore a good energy in the house. Another trick that, these are more than tricks, but one is quite fun, is to announce that there's a cake in the refrigerator. So when tensions are rising, you say, I think there's a cake in the refrigerator, and immediately it's like, okay, I know what that means. That's the code for let's chill, let's calm down, let's enjoy some cake. And there may or may not be some cake in the refrigerator. But it's clear what it means. It's like, let's get happy again and enjoy a moment of sweetness. So this is also something possible, a skillful way, you could say, to create a pause, a skillful way to restore a sense of happiness. And again, this is why sense of humor can be very good, and in a way that is a kind of it's a little bit mean to say that if a child is actually thinking there's a cake in the refrigerator, so you have to be careful with it. But so creative ways that we can do, we can think of to help get ourselves press the reset button, if you like. But I think other ways that we're fortunate to have, say for instance in Deer Park, is having a schedule. So we have our sitting meditation together, we have our walking, and it's very supportive to do together. But if you're in a home situation and you're a bit claustrophobic, and if you're the only one that's into the practice, but you can have your own schedule where you do bring in the practice into the day. Somehow you bring it in. Be that a mindful walk in nature. It's so important to be able to connect with nature. The nature doesn't know what's going on. It maybe notices slightly less pollution for a time, but it doesn't really know about the COVID. So it's also a place to just remind ourselves, there's other realities taking place at the same time. And it's also a place where we can again connect with a larger sense of what is important, get our perspective back, and nature and reconnecting with Mother Earth can give us a lot of peace, and we can ask for the stability of the earth to come to us as we walk, as we stand outside, as we sit outside. And if it's not possible to go out for a walk or to sit outside, then, as I mentioned, we hopefully have our space, our sacred spot, our breathing room, our breathing corner in our house, in our bedroom. So having a time to sit, to walk in the day as part of our daily routine, to nourish our joy, to nourish our stability, to take care of those emotions, those anxieties we may have, important. And having also a clear, sense of purpose. So even we stay at home, and that is our job, to stay at home, that job can't be the only thing we do, right? I just stay at home. We may have our way to continue our livelihood, or we may find ourselves with a lot of time on our hands that we didn't have before. And what do we do with that time? Maybe we think, finally I get to catch up on all of the Netflix that I want to see. Or, I don't know, we may use the time for a while to indulge in entertainment, but very quickly we will discover that doesn't bring us so much happiness, and we need, and it's certainly not bringing us stability. And sooner or later the anxieties, the worries, the heartache will come back to us. Maybe we can be somebody that cares a lot, and so we're quite sensitive to what is happening in the world, and we want to distract ourselves from that. And that is why, but it doesn't work. That's the problem. The distraction, eventually, it doesn't work because, even I'm not watching Netflix, but I got woken at 3 a.m. with anxiety that I wasn't, for concerns that I was not addressing, I think. So all the more important to really make sure that we are paying attention and giving space, as I mentioned before, to connecting with other people, be it online somehow, or what ways are available to us to share about things that are important, and to share about our concerns, to listen to each other, to provide listening time for each other. Just the other day, a brother came to my room, we had a cup of tea, and I got this opportunity to really, partly because of what had happened, this experience kind of gave me quite a jolt, to realize that I could be woken up like that. And so to really then have somebody to listen, so I could kind of start to put out unpack with the help of somebody's listening energy, holding that space. It became so much easier to start to get clarity and to see. Of course, we can do it on our own a bit and see, but sometimes a friend can be so important. But going back to this sense of purpose also, of course, the practice itself and just is there's so much we can cultivate with just even solitary practice, So there's plenty to do on our own in terms of the practice that is going to be very beneficial. And there is also just simply the practice of keeping harmony in the household, which is what I was also mentioning. But then, more than that, we need a kind of outward direction sometimes for our love, for our need to contribute. And we find skillful ways to do that. And I already mentioned the kind of volunteering that's taking place in the UK, and you know, even just to identify somebody that you think may be a neighbour, maybe a stranger to you, that could do with you connecting with them somehow, you know. Just like I heard a story of somebody saying that they would put a note to say, you know, if you need any shopping, anything. So even though they knew they couldn't go into the house and everything, but they let it know that they're there, and if there's anything that they need, even this is a neighbour they'd never spoken to before. So there's things that we can do. I'm going to conclude because I just spot the time by saying that one of the things that I've noticed comes up from me from time to time, comes up in sharings when we connect with sanghas online, is the sort of feeling of, oh, things are not going to get better, it doesn't look good, and a kind of feeling of helplessness, a feeling of there's nothing, what can I do? Yeah. And fear about the future, etc. So for me, the principal thing I want to draw out, and I've connected with it in this talk, talking about taking refuge in love, in the practice of love and understanding, taking refuge in compassion, and connecting that very much with the practice of mindfulness and mindful breathing, etc., as hopefully has been clear in the talk. That is what can give us a sense of, you know, purpose, however that manifests, and a sense of regaining a sense of not, you know, of sovereignty, and also this is something I can do, and letting go of the helpless thing. Because I think in the end, if we are truly acting from love, it has intrinsic value, intrinsic meaning, and it doesn't need to have a kind of, you know, the result is in that act of love. So we can, you know, when Thai was, our teacher, I feel is a incredible example of this action, this one action. For me, Thai's one action was love, has been love, is still, and continues through the Sangha, and even Thai is still with us, and I believe it is love which keeps him alive, like, and the desire to keep going. And in the Vietnam War, in that time, there would also be absolute feeling of despair and hopelessness, destruction all around. But Thai kept true to compassion as his compass, as his guiding, this is my direction, and as his energy to keep going on. You know, it was not a cold, separated, zened out, calm. Yes, he had the ability to be calm, to be peaceful, but he was connecting with compassion, with love, as his, you know, keeping him going and motivated. And this is, so to take refuge in love is to take refuge in the practice. And I believe that is whatever comes, if we know that we've done that and we've been rooted in that, we won't have regrets about and we will probably also, we can say that we will have done the best we can for whatever situation. So bringing love to ourselves through the practice, bringing love into our families, and bringing love to the world, be it through a smile, be it through a cake in the refrigerator, be it through our own meditation and taking care of our anxiety and restoring our peace, be it through bringing food to somebody or connecting with somebody who is vulnerable, in whatever ways we can, we will know that that is all of these things. And I feel one thing when we look for silver linings, if you like, is one thing I see quite clearly is is the capacity of humanity to respond very beautifully. We know the potential for humanity to respond badly, to go into war, to go into also kind of lead us to become dictatorial or things like that, and these kind of concerns and things that are not done from love, but can stem from reaction and lead to violence and hatred. So we are aware of that, but we also see the capacity, the potential of humanity to respond very, very beautifully in situations, and we want to be part of that. So thank you for your time, and maybe we end with 3 sounds of the bell.